Great job, Iede. I mean, it's beautifully picturesque and very moving. I completely understand the sentiment of this opening prologue, and yeah, it's very very well taken. Just a little comment here. You might want to add your own name to these entries, just in case. Oops. Just in case there is any confusion, in case like the score gets mixed up because, orchestrated by your name. See, that's put in there so that you can replace your own name in the score. All right, so little tiny detail. Watch out for that, folks, in your own entries. Okay, so I really love what the percussion is doing here. I'm actually wondering whether or not the timpani could have just been reserved for the strong beats. Do you know what I mean? Because you already have this da 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 dum in the cello, so it feels to me like the addition of this pulse right here in the timpani is distracting from what's going on in your snare drum and your cello, which, by the way, you really should have that marked as well, right? Right, something like this. SN period DRM, or whatever the equivalent would be. So yeah, just to let the copyist and the conductor and everybody else know. Okay, but I wonder if this is, give it a try. Make a copy of your score and then eliminate these extra beats on the timpani and tell me what you think. Right, whether or not that's that sort of helps to emphasize the finality of the timpani right here rather than subtracting from it. I think that it sort of gives things away here, right? All right, so something is distracting me here. I know what it is. Transposing score. There we go. All right, see, now that looks a lot more natural. This is set up a little strangely in the horns. Um, the You've got your third horn on a high C sharp here. This should really be the first horn part. First horn, second horn on the A. Excuse me. First horn, third horn on the A, second horn on the F sharp. Right? So that would be a much better way of dividing all this up. Yeah. But, when you get to here, see, this F sharp should be in the first horn. But then here you have the first and third horn playing unison, and that's fine. Right, but then once again here you have the third horn playing over the first horn, and there's just really no need to do that. The first horn is the leader of the section. They should be leading from above, okay? Because everybody under them is going to try to match their intonation so that top note sets the pace. So very rarely would the third horn be doing that, and there's absolutely no justification for that here. So I generally like what you're doing here, and the way that you've organized the materials. It's really, really nice. Yeah, and then the trombone coming in here for those suspended notes. So you have to tell us who is who, right? So, right? If you only intend for your first trumpet player to be playing this note, then you have to write a 1 in here, right? And the same thing here. We can just copy paste this and put it here. Right. And then the same thing here. This should be marked, right? Right. So you have to tell us who is playing what, right? I love the idea of tenor saxophone in here. I'm wondering whether or not it can play so beautifully softly on those very high pitches, though. This would be more like scoring for, I think if you really wanted this to be a saxophone sound and you wanted it to be very soft, it would be better for this to be played by alto saxophone. Because they could get those notes, which would be lower written notes for them, would be much easier to play very softly, and especially getting down here, this high F I think would be harder to play incredibly soft. Well, I mean, saxophone players can really play soft if you want them to. But I mean, in the sort of concert saxophone register, layout, which is in essence is the concert saxophone playing in a style, in a kind of articulation and projection that is similar to concert winds, then I think that it's just wiser. Like, and especially, I mean, you're saying piano diminuendo to pianissimo, and you've got a tenuto accent, right, on these notes, and they are just going to ring out. I mean, despite what the mock-up is saying, they are going to be very, very penetrating. Okay, so I just really feel that you just would hear this kind of bam, just really just blat, just like this really sudden blast from your tenor up there on those, for them, higher pitches. Right. Okay, so but not to dwell on it too much, but yeah, so just like this really does need to be reorganized, and with the first horn taking the top. And so on, and it's okay for unisons to be in separate instruments or separate staves, right? So for instance, all of this right in here could be, this could be unison second and fourth, and then this part right here being played by the first. Anyway, yeah, but it's all very cool. This is strange. You have like an extra rest right in here. I don't know why. Okay, and then you have unison trombones right in here. I don't think that you need that level of weight. Okay, it is perfectly fine just to bring in the second trombone here, and then leave them out going forwards. Yeah, it just feels really heavy to have two trombones right there. But I really love everything else here. The clarinets, I think that works really beautifully. I think that the idea of putting in a saxophone right in there on those pitches, I think that's cool. I just think tenor is possibly the wrong model to be playing that, especially like as you want to just really diminuendo down to incredibly soft right here. So far, I really like the balance, right? Piano here, and then pianissimo for the horns, piano for the percussion. But this is a little strange. Piano for the trombones. So why are the trombones 1 degree louder than the trumpets and horns? There's really no need for them to be louder. They could also be pianissimo. And then here, piano diminuendo. Did you forget to put piano right in here? That's what it feels like to me, right? So da da, and then a little louder da 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 da. Okay, so I mean that all seems like a more likely kind of a solution. I mean, it's interesting. You sort of have like a very somber military march in 6/4. But I mean, like military marches can be in 3/4 time. I mean, the Polonaise is an example of that, right? It is a march in 3/4 time. So yeah, so let's jump back to this. There's one last thing to really think about, and that is on Andante sostenuto, a quarter note equals 88, and you have these beautiful long slurs, okay, which are basically just dropped in from the piano part. Now, Iede, did you get a chance to watch my video, 12 Common Scoring Errors? Okay, because I do talk about the problems with just using piano, the slurs from the piano part, just dropping them into parts for winds and brass and so on. Now, there's nothing fatal about the way that you have scored this, but you are just, you end up with a lack of emphasis on the downbeat, right? There is no tonguing on the downbeat anywhere until you get to right here, right? And then moving on, same thing. Nobody tongues on the downbeat, right? Which really works against the whole idea of this being a march, some kind of march or solemn ceremony, right? With the drums, the bass drum or timpani, taking the place of the bass drum, and the percussion. And by the way, since you have got double bass in here and cellos, basically outlining what the harmony is, you don't even need timpani here. You could just have bass drum just hitting the strong beats in every bar, and you might get exactly the same effect. All right, well, not exactly, but you would get a similar effect. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about that. So, what is wrong with making these slurs shorter and just saying pianissimo legato, right? So just tell the players that they're going to be playing a very connected style, and then just slur it like this: ta 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 ta. Do you know what I mean? It's like the other problem too is that you're slurring over repeated notes, right? And while that is a thing, it is not a thing just in a kind of a way that you just drop it in and like forget about it, right? So like I was talking to my wife about it, and she has gotten so used to the idea of people dropping in that kind of slurring, this kind of slurring, that she just sort of treats it like an expression mark, and she just connects everything the way that she wants to. But is that what you want? Do you want your wind and brass players just to do whatever they want to because you're not really giving them clear instructions? If you're fine with that, then hey, they will do that all day long, but they may end up slurring things together or expressing things in a way that you don't want. So you need to learn, that is my suggestion, with the quality of work that you're putting out, Iede. You need to learn to do that and to think about what the player needs from you. I mean, wouldn't it be better, especially since this is a sort of a military march, right? Ta 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 ta, right? So rather than ta, which is what they'll do. They'll push with their stomach, right? Sort of a portato kind of articulation. So yeah, I think you need to think about how long your slurs are and what they really mean, and not just drop them in from the piano part. Okay? All right. Next screen. All right, and then same concern here, but I'm glad that you don't just continue on with it needlessly, right? But right here, shouldn't this slurring match this slurring? All right, shouldn't they all slur together the same way? I think that this is very cool, by the way. Bass clarinet in here, bassoon. I mean, see, here's where I would have thought that it would have been great to bring in tenor sax, right, rather than bassoon, or tenor sax playing along instead of bass clarinet. I just feel that would be a really great tone color right in there. But anyway, that's all good. And all this middle voice stuff is really interesting and cool. But here's the thing, that your pizzicato strings are so soft. They're so soft. They're inaudible, right? There is no need for the pizzicato strings to be 1 degree softer than your winds. And the reason for that is because pizzicato is already softer. It's already a sort of a degree softer, at least in terms of the sustain, right? The sustain for the pizzicato is almost nothing, except for the much lower instruments. So they are already at a disadvantage, and here you're putting them at an even bigger disadvantage because you are marking them down from the winds. And there's a third disadvantage, which is that these winds are playing very beautiful, long, resonant tones over the same notes as your pizzicato. So what does that mean is that it is triply going to be submerged. And then here, when the instruments start playing together, shouldn't they be the same dynamic? Shouldn't these strings be the same? The violin, shouldn't they also be at least piano espressivo along with the... And then, then this curve here, the dynamic arc, is going to be unified, right? And the same thing right in here. These notes right in here, they do need to sort of unify with what else is going on. And I mean, it just really feels to me like there needs to be yet another voice. The violas aren't doing anything here. Couldn't they have doubled the bassoons or something? So, I mean, I just feels that there needs to be a little bit more strength right in here, and that you just really shouldn't, like, and pianissimo right here. This is going to be inaudible against the clarinet. Which clarinet? Is this the first clarinet? Right? Then tell us so. Tell us who is playing what. Now, of course, you don't have to tell us who's playing bass clarinet because it's just one player, right? So it's strange. There are these like second voices. I'll just clean this up for you. All right. So yeah. So watch out for that. All right. Okay. So you are pushing towards this, right? And you are finally getting to forte with your cellos and so on and so forth. Okay. So that's all good. But did you notice how, like here you have accented forte horns. Suddenly there is nothing in the sound picture but horns and just very kind of vaguely in the background everybody else, right? So I would say lose the accents, right? And then also score this mezzo forte. And then you get a beautiful balance with the horns coming in warm. And you could even set up the entrance of the horns with the horns sort of playing a background harmonic pad, sort of coming from pianissimo and then pushing into this and then playing mezzo forte with the forte of the other instruments. And then I think you'd get just the most beautiful, like the horns would not just suddenly be part of the sound picture. Even at mezzo forte, they're going to feel like a surprise. But they would be a gradual element that would seep into the music, and by the time everybody was playing all together here, right, it would feel a lot more natural. I just want to check something. I'm going to go back up. Right, so... Alright, so it's strange. Like, you have your double basses, arco, and your cellos pizzicato, and, I mean, that's all kind of cool. Right. But, I mean, shouldn't the double basses be slurring a little? Right, so you've got this pick, pluck, 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 and then you have this kind of bow, 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 bow. But yeah, then here where it gets smoother, right, and then especially here, right, where the double basses are just really carrying the load as far as the left-hand patterns are concerned. I just really feel the absence of any kind of slurring here, and I also feel that the double basses are carrying almost more of a responsibility than they can handle all by themselves, right? So if we go to the next page, we see that the cellos are coming in here, and I'm just wondering why the cellos couldn't have played more of a role before, right? Because if we go back up, we just see that they're just playing this one single note. Couldn't the cellos have somehow eventually joined up with the basses? And so when we finally got to this right here, it would be more natural, right? And then, of course, here we have a problem in that you have a distance of 2 octaves between the cellos and the double basses all of a sudden, right? And that it feels you will really feel the space between that in a live situation. And here you're saying arco. See, this is confusing the heck out of me. Did you perhaps intend for the? Yeah, see, there's nothing. I don't see any marking of pizzicato here. So was this perhaps intended to be pizzicato? Am I sort of missing something here? Anyway. Yeah, so just it needs a little bit of proofreading there. Okay, so yeah, so far, here, just like, where did the saxophone go? There are all these beautiful opportunities for saxophone to be playing. So, that's something else I think you could have brought into the score, is just more sax. And maybe this being an alto, which I feel is just it's more of a central voice, and it can really complement, because you don't have an English horn in your score, so it could take the place of the English horn. I don't know if you've heard me tell this story, but the first orchestra that ever played my music was this community/student orchestra. It was the student orchestra of a junior college, sort of like a 2-year college, a preparatory college, you could think of it. And the conductor was an old friend of mine. He'd been my conductor back at junior high school, at middle school, and this was many years later, or maybe a decade later. Anyhow, I just remember that before they read my work, they also played the second movement of the Dvorak 9, and the with the famous English horn solo, and they couldn't find an English horn player, and their oboe players did not have an English horn, so they just had one of their clarinetists play the English saxophone. In other words, an alto saxophone, and it sounded beautiful. I just thought, wow, I would just as soon hear it on alto saxophone played that beautifully. The person who played it on alto sax was the band teacher for a high school, and he was like one of these guys that easily could have been in a top orchestra if that had been his plan in life. But instead he was teaching band, which he enjoyed a lot, and I think he retired just a few years ago. He was really in it for a long time. So you could have used some English saxophone in here, is what I'm trying to say. All right, so let's get back to the evaluation. Okay, so this is all really wonderful orchestration right in here, and I like the way that you really ease off. But one thing that I'm wondering is, in the piano part, the pianist plays this chord, and the wash from the chord, the sustain from the chord, lasts over most of the wandering little melody that emerges from the left hand, right? So couldn't this last a little bit longer? Maybe the winds could fade out and the strings could back down to like pianissimo or even triple P or something, but just hold on for quite a while and then fade out. Okay, I'm not as convinced by the pizzicato, and especially I'm not as convinced by the pizzicato at pianissimo. So here, like piano, okay, all right, for a harp, you want to put the marking here at the beginning. And since you're using Sibelius, let's delete that. Since you're using Sibelius, what you want to do is use the command Option 5, or the keyboard shortcut, Option 5, to turn it into a light blue. This means that this dynamic will be in effect for the entire for both staves, right? So this piano will apply to both staves, and I can see, these cross staff slurs and cross staff beaming and so on, and it's something that Sibelius just really needs. I mean, it's something that needed to be fixed long ago. Anyhow, all right. So so I would say for the harp, you could also maybe start mezzo piano, right? Because you want the harp to be louder than everybody else here, right? So, and then just maybe even put in have a crescendo and then a little diminuendo going to this. And then here, I would say P, right? And then also have a crescendo going into this. So maybe by the time the music gets here, it's mezzo forte or something like that. Right? And then diminuendo down to here. And then here, I think triple P is just way too soft. I think that this could all be piano or pianissimo at the softest. But I think the triple P is just too soft. I mean, you can just tell from the mock-up that it's way too far away, right? It needs to be a little bit closer. But I really like the rest of this. This gorgeous little oboe solo. Of course, you're slurring down to this D and so on, and that could be problematic for a less than professional player. But anyways, I think it all works fine. Yeah. Anyways, so really cool score, Iede, and you've been a presence in these orchestration challenges, and it's great to have you back, and it's great to see your contribution and so on. I think these accents in the horns are way too much, and that the horn should also match the same. They should match the same tonguing pattern as the Like, see, like here you're putting a slur over this and you're giving it accents. That means that the accent has to come from the gut, right? It won't be a ta, it'll be a right? I mean, is that what you want? Right? You have to think. Like, all of these things mean something when you add them all together. So I would just say kill these slurs, get rid of the accents. You're making the horns way too loud. You know, like, for instance, this C sharp here, this written C sharp sounding F sharp is like the loudest thing in the mock-up right here. It's just like screaming over everything, right? So just ease it back, ease it way back, right? Leave out a voice. Don't double voices on this unless you really absolutely, like, you don't need two horns on this G, you don't need two horns on that C sharp, right? Just let it be 3-part harmony when it has to be 3-part harmony. The horns do not mind dropping out and coming back in. You know, your third or fourth horn coming in or dropping out. They do that all the time. Anyways, yeah, but lovely score. I mean, just the meaning behind it and how easy it would be to fix this. That really says something, right? That how easy it would be to get in there and get this ready for the stands. Hardly any work. It would take me like 15 minutes just to, like, if somebody sent this to me and say, look, Thomas, you know, I know that this needs a little bit of work. Can you fix it? And so on and so forth. It's like, yeah, easy, right? Just boom, boom, boom. I would just know what to do. It's mainly, you know, fixing some of the slurring. I might adjust this. I might actually have the oboist. I might have this come in an octave higher from here, right? So that it's one beautiful curve going downhill, just the same as the second violins right here. And I might actually give this upper part to the first violins and the lower part to the second violins. That kind of stuff. You know, just real easy little adjustments. But the fact that it would be easy to adjust says a whole lot. So, anyways, great work. It's just so fun to look at and really, you know, one of those things where inspires me to go further and to keep going with these evaluations, because the imagination of each of my entries is so rich and so individual. It's really a lovely thing. So thank you so much, Iede, for supporting on Patreon. I mean, especially for this particular entry, for which you seem to have a lot of empathy, and that's fantastic. And for everybody watching thus far, please give Iede some great feedback. You know, this is the kind of scoring that really deserves to get all the encouragement, you know, and great ideas and praise. You know, it's really, really nice. And I think that I feel so inspired, I'm just going to go evaluate something else. Perhaps that will show up the day that this is released. Thanks, everybody, and I will see you very soon in the next video.